subscribe to the channel, and hear even more exciting stories. My wedding plans derailed by family drama. Hey Reddit, long-time lurker, first time, please send emotional support poster. I never thought I'd be that bride, but here I am, typing this from my apartment floor with a half-eaten donut and a bridal planner full of post-it notes that might as well say LOL on every page. So me, 29F, and Ethan, 31M, have been together for 4 years, and honestly, I thought we'd beaten the odds. We met through friends, bonded over bad karaoke, survived moving in together during lockdown, and still actually want to see each other at the end of the day. He's funny, patient, slightly obsessed with fantasy football, and the only person I've ever met who will argue about dishwasher etiquette and apologize 5 minutes later. When he proposed last fall, yes, I ugly cried, and yes, it was on video. I thought, okay, this is it. This is my forever person. We started planning a smallish wedding, just family and close friends. I dreamed about this day forever. White dress, lots of dancing, maybe a flash mob if I could convince Ethan's brothers. I knew my family could be dramatic, but I figured, what's the worst that could happen? Well, hindsight, as always, is cruel and petty. Looking back, there were some warning signs. My mom, for one, is the kind of person who can turn a dinner seating chart into a full-on diplomatic crisis. My dad tries to keep the peace by saying as little as possible, which somehow makes things worse. Ethan's mom is, let's say, enthusiastic about giving advice, and his older sister once called dibs on the song for our first dance as a joke. I still don't know if she was kidding. But I truly believed we could make it through with a few minor arguments and the occasional group chat meltdown. I was wrong. So wrong. The family drama started 2 months ago, and it's still spiraling out of control. The drama started, as most family wars do, with a seemingly innocent spreadsheet. The guest list, the digital landmine of every wedding. Ethan and I had set our limit, 80 people, tops. We'd even color-coded it, blue for my family, green for his, yellow for friends, pink for maybe, aka mom's church friends I'd never met. Enter my mom, wielding her signature passive-aggressive cheeriness. Oh, honey, I just thought of a few more people. You remember Aunt Carol's second husband? And Mrs. Wojcik from down the street. You played with her grandson in kindergarten. Suddenly, the list was ballooning into small-town census territory. When I gently reminded her of our plan, she acted as if I'd canceled Christmas. But family is everything. Don't you want to start your marriage with everyone's blessing? The real kicker, she started calling relatives directly. Of course you're invited. She just hasn't sent the RSVP yet, dear. Ethan's family, meanwhile, was lobbying to include his cousin Doug, who he literally hasn't seen since 2008 and who, rumor has it, tried to sell weed at their last reunion. My first reaction was panic, followed by a comedy of errors. I tried to reason with everyone, kept adjusting the list, and even set up a shared Google Doc so people could see the numbers. This backfired instantly. My aunt added her new boyfriend. Ethan's mom wrote notes like, "Can we squeeze in a table for 10 more?" And my own brother started trolling by adding made-up names. I'm still not sure if Uncle Steve Buscemi was a joke or a weird power move. The guest list was just the first match to a much bigger fire. What started as a tug-of-war over the guest list quickly snowballed into an all-out Cold War. The next battlefront? The seating chart. My mom wanted her cousins close to the action, meaning as close to me as possible. Ethan's mom thought her bridge club deserved their own table, and my dad's only request was, put me as far away from your Uncle Pete as possible. Pete, for the record, is notorious for inappropriate jokes and eating half the hors d'oeuvres before dinner. Things escalated fast. My mom called me in tears because she heard from Aunt Carol that she was seated too far from the cake. Ethan's sister complained about being next to boring people. Then my brother started a group chat titled The Petty Table and invited everyone under 25 to revolt. Meanwhile, old wounds started reopening. My parents bickered over money. Maybe if your father had gotten that promotion, we could afford a bigger venue. And Ethan's parents insisted on paying for the rehearsal dinner, but only if they could choose the restaurant. The first real fight between me and Ethan happened in the middle of a Target aisle, arguing about napkin colors, but actually about who was taking whose side. You always fold to your mom, I snapped. Well, your mom's the one adding people like she's running for office, he shot back. Pressure came from all sides. My family guilt tripped me about forgetting where I came from. Ethan's family made passive-aggressive comments about how things are done in our family. I found myself dreading every phone call. Even friends started to notice. I snapped at my maid of honor for asking if I'd picked flowers, then immediately felt guilty for turning into Bridezilla Light. What had started as my dream day was rapidly morphing into a reality show. I tried group emails, mediating calls, even considered eloping at least once a day. But no matter what I did, I couldn't please everyone. I was starting to realize I might not even please myself. Somewhere between my third stress migraine and finding my dad hiding in the garage with a crossword puzzle, I decided to go full diplomat. I made a list of everyone's biggest demands and truly tried, to find common ground. Ethan and I sat down with our parents, set out snacks, and held what I called the summit. I made color-coded charts. Ethan supplied calming tea, and for a brief, shining moment, I thought maybe we could adult our way out of this mess. It lasted 20 minutes. My mom and Ethan's mom both wanted veto power over the playlist. No rap and nothing from the 90s. While Ethan's dad thought we should have an open bar. If people want to toast with vodka, let them. My own aunt arrived halfway through, dramatically waving a vegan food magazine, demanding a full plant-based menu, despite being a proud steak lover all her life. We tried compromise. Maybe a small, separate vegan table? Maybe Mom could invite one extra person for every person we cut from the friend list? Ethan and I tried saying no in new, firmer ways, but it only seemed to fuel the drama. Both sides accused us of forgetting who paid for what. Every attempted olive branch just became a new stick to beat us with. Private heart-to-hearts didn't go much better. My mom cried about her only daughter's special day being ruined. Ethan's mom sniffed that these young people just don't appreciate tradition. I was pulled into side conversations everywhere. The supermarket, Facebook messages, even a whispered plea from my grandma in the church bathroom. Maybe just let them have their way, sweetie. You know how families are. I tried letting things slide, then felt like a doormat. I tried standing firm, and immediately got accused of being selfish or disrespectful. Even Ethan started to look tired and withdrawn. For the first time, planning our wedding felt less like preparing for a celebration and more like staging a ceasefire. And with every failed attempt at peace, I could feel my patience and my excitement starting to unravel. You know that cliché about the last straw? Mine came during a Sunday brunch meant to clear the air. My mom brought her infamous binder, color tabs, printed email chains, venue brochures, while Ethan's mom arrived with a family traditions scrapbook and 3 pages of notes. I just wanted eggs and some peace. Everything was civil until it wasn't. My aunt asked, loudly, if it was true we were cutting +1s for budget reasons or just because you don't want people to have fun. Ethan's sister started a heated debate over which family's last name would go first on the invitations, then joked about double-barreling it into some unpronounceable Frankenstein. My cousin sulked because she never got a big wedding. All this as my mom and Ethan's mom sniped about the DJ. Finally, Ethan stood up and said, let's just do what's best for us, not everyone else. My mom's eyes filled with tears. Ethan's mom scoffed and muttered, that's easy to say when you're not the one paying. I felt the world tilt sideways. I blurted, if it's really just about money and control, maybe we shouldn't have a wedding at all. Silence. My mom gasped. Ethan's sister froze with a mimosa halfway to her lips, and Ethan just stared at me. I felt completely exposed, raw, angry, humiliated. There it was, out in the open. Maybe I didn't want any of this, at least not like this. After brunch, Ethan and I barely spoke. That night, I sobbed in the shower, feeling both furious and ashamed. Had I overreacted? Was I being ungrateful? Or had I finally just reached the edge of what I could handle? The next morning, my phone exploded with group texts, some urging, let's not ruin everything. Others warning me not to throw away your happiness over pride. I didn't answer. I didn't know what I wanted. But for the first time, I realized something had to change. Because I was disappearing inside everyone else's expectations, and my wedding was starting to feel like a stranger's. The days after the brunch incident felt like an out-of-body experience. Everywhere I went, wedding talk followed like a rain cloud. My mom left me voicemails, her voice wobbling between wounded and passive-aggressive. Ethan's mom sent a 2,000-word email about the true meaning of family and why compromise was the foundation of a happy marriage. Friends texted encouraging memes, but even those started to feel hollow. I barely looked at my Pinterest board. The joy was gone. I cycled through every emotion: anger, sadness, guilt, numbness, and back again. I'd always imagined my wedding as the happiest day of my life, but now the thought of walking down the aisle made my stomach hurt. I was caught in the middle, pulled apart by people who claimed to love me but seemed more interested in winning. I questioned everything. Was I too controlling? Was I letting everyone down? Was my own happiness supposed to come last? Ethan tried to help, but he was struggling too. He started coming home late, mumbling about needing space. When we did talk, it always circled back to the wedding, money, or whose family was being more unreasonable. The tension thickened. Sometimes it felt like I barely recognized us anymore. Even little things, like choosing napkin rings or playlists, turned into landmines. One night, Ethan snapped, "Why does everything have to be so hard?" And I broke down crying. I felt trapped, afraid to cancel, afraid to go through with it, afraid to stand up for myself. All the wedding blogs and advice columns said, "It's your day," but no one warned me how guilty I'd feel for wanting it to actually be about me and Ethan. For wanting peace, not another family moment where my own feelings were sidelined. For the first time, I let myself imagine calling the whole thing off. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. And I felt, for a brief moment, something like relief mixed with deep, aching grief. I realized, in that quiet sadness, that maybe this was my turning point. Maybe I needed to mourn the wedding I dreamed of before I could decide what I really wanted next. By the next week, I felt wrung out, like a sponge someone kept squeezing just to see what was left. I found myself daydreaming about running away. Just me and Ethan in Vegas, cheesy chapel, no family, no drama, just us and a bad Elvis impersonator. But then I'd remember the faces around the table, the emails, the pressure. I was so tangled up in guilt and other people's hopes that I'd stopped thinking about what Ethan and I actually wanted. One night, I sat on the kitchen floor with Ethan and finally said it out loud. "I don't want this wedding. Not like this. I can't keep doing it for everyone else." For a second, he just stared at me. Then, instead of the fight I half expected, he let out a breath and pulled me into a hug. "Me neither," he whispered. "It feels like we're planning their party, not ours." We stayed up all night talking, really talking, for the first time in weeks. We made a list of what actually mattered to us. A small ceremony, people who supported us, no more spreadsheet warfare. We decided to cancel the big wedding. Instead, we'd do a simple courthouse ceremony and throw a casual party later for whoever truly wanted to celebrate with us. I felt equal parts terrified and exhilarated. Telling our families was rough. My mom cried, "You're throwing away the most important day of your life." Ethan's parents got passive-aggressive. "Well, we hope you won't regret this decision." But something inside me stayed steady. For the first time in months, I felt a surge of ownership over my own life. I sent out a group text, kind but firm. "We're calling off the big wedding. We want to focus on our marriage, not the spectacle. We hope you understand." Some relatives freaked out, others quietly approved, and more than one friend called to say, "Honestly, good for you." It wasn't what I'd pictured all my life, but it was finally, really ours. The immediate aftermath was exactly as dramatic as you'd expect. My mom went on a texting spree, alternating between guilt trips, "You'll regret not having your real wedding," and classic martyrdom, "I guess we'll never have a family portrait now." Ethan's mom announced on Facebook that young people today just don't value tradition, prompting a comment war among relatives I barely knew. My inbox became a weird mashup of condolences and veiled, "I told you so" messages. It was exhausting and, honestly, a little surreal. There was backlash, of course. A few family members went radio silent, which, after weeks of drama, felt like bliss. My dad surprised me. He called, said he was proud of us for making our own choice, and offered to take us out for burgers, like old times. A handful of friends confessed that they'd secretly hoped we'd pull the plug, too. Apparently, I wasn't the only one overwhelmed by the circus. Ethan and I got plenty of alone time, for the first time in months. We binge-watched terrible reality TV, ate takeout on the living room floor, and rediscovered what it felt like to be just us. No family group chats, no spreadsheets, no pressure to perform. We made jokes about crashing our own wedding and practiced our vows in pajama pants. There were moments of sadness, too, little flashes of what might have been. Sometimes I'd see a bridal ad or a perfect Instagram post and feel a sharp pang. But it always passed. What lasted was the sense of relief, the weight off my chest, the knowledge that I could say no to something that didn't feel right. The best part? The peace and quiet that settled over our apartment. For the first time in ages, I wasn't bracing for the next family drama bomb. Our relationship felt lighter, closer, and so much more honest. The chaos had cleared, and in the quiet, I started to recognize the life we were building for ourselves, one honest choice at a time. A few weeks after the dust settled, I finally had the headspace to look back and process everything. There was a sense of loss, sure. Sometimes I'd flip through my old wedding Pinterest board and feel a pang for the party we didn't have, the big dress reveal, the dance with my dad. But the longer I sat with it, the more I realized I wasn't actually mourning the wedding itself. I was mourning the idea of a family that didn't exist, the fantasy that everyone would put our happiness ahead of their pride or old grudges. With some distance, I could see how much of my life had been shaped by wanting to please everyone, by buying into the myth that a perfect day would fix decades of family drama. All that wedding chaos didn't create the problems. It just shined a spotlight on the fractures and loyalties that had always been there, barely hidden under small talk and birthday cards. Ethan and I started to talk openly about the future, now that it was finally ours. We set boundaries for holidays, promised each other that no event would be worth this kind of misery again. I learned I can say no to people I love and survive their disappointment. That's a lesson I wish I'd learned sooner. Family relationships didn't magically repair themselves. My mom is still salty. Ethan's mom still passive-aggressively shares wedding photos from happier times on Facebook, and some relatives have faded out of our lives. But the friends and family who stuck around, the ones who genuinely supported us, mean more to me now than ever. In the end, the chaos of our wedding plans gave me something unexpected, the chance to take myself seriously for once. To recognize that my wants, my voice, my relationship matter. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. And for the first time, I started seeing myself as someone who could build happiness, not just manage disappointment. And honestly, that feels better than any bouquet toss or father-daughter dance ever could. So here I am, months after the non-wedding that nearly broke me, feeling lighter than I thought possible. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be happier without the dream day I'd spent years imagining, I'd have laughed and maybe cried. But this whole mess taught me a truth nobody shares on Pinterest. Weddings end, but who you are and who you're willing to fight for lasts a lifetime. If you're reading this in the throes of your own wedding chaos, here's what I wish someone had told me. Your wedding doesn't have to fix your family. If you're losing sleep, peace, or joy just to make someone else comfortable, it's okay to call a timeout or call it off. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary, and sometimes saying no is the bravest thing you can do for your relationship. Don't let anyone convince you your happiness is less important than tradition, appearances, or how things are done. You're allowed to grieve the wedding you dreamed of, but you're also allowed to let go of plans that don't feel like yours anymore. Trust your gut, lean on your real friends, and don't be afraid to rewrite the story if the original script turns toxic. As for me and Ethan, we went to City Hall in matching sneakers and said, "I do," with just our closest people and a random couple who cheered us on in the hallway. It wasn't grand, but it was ours. No drama, no scripts, just joy and the promise that we'd always choose each other, even when it's hard. Family is messy. Weddings are pressure cookers. But marriage, at least the kind we want, is about having someone who stands with you, even when your mother is threatening to boycott Thanksgiving. I never got the big fairy tale, but I got something real. And that, for me, is more than enough. So hang in there, future brides and grooms. You're not alone in the mess, and it really does get better when you finally start planning for you, not them.